Tammuz, also known as Dumuzid in Sumerian mythology, is a figure whose mythological journey resonates deeply with the ancient human understanding of life, death, and renewal. His story is one of love, loss, and the cyclical nature of life. As a god of fertility, shepherds, and vegetation, Tammuz's life and death embody the rhythm of the seasons and the essential agricultural cycles that were central to the survival of early civilizations in the ancient Near East. Tammuz was revered primarily in Sumerian, Akkadian, and Babylonian cultures, where he was associated with the life-giving forces of the earth. In the myth, he is often depicted as a young, beautiful god, loved by the goddess Inanna or Ishtar. In the Akkadian version, the goddess of love, fertility, and war, their love was passionate and intense. But it is his death and subsequent descent into the underworld that define his most profound significance. The most famous myth associated with Tammuz is his tragic death, which takes place as a result of his unceremonious capture by the forces of the underworld. Inanna, overcome with grief at the loss of her beloved, descends into the underworld to seek him. Her journey to the realm of the dead is fraught with peril, and as she confronts the queen of the underworld, Ereshkigal, she is subjected to a series of trials. Eventually, Inanna is allowed to return to the living, but only after agreeing to send someone in her place. Tammuz, her beloved, becomes the substitute, and thus he is taken to the underworld. This myth symbolizes the death of Tammuz and the subsequent sorrow of his absence, a loss that has a profound impact on both the heavens and the earth. Inanna's mourning for Tammuz is depicted as a devastating grief, and as she returns to the earth, the land becomes barren. Crops cease to grow, and life slows, reflecting the agricultural cycle that Tammuz represented. His death marks a time of hardship and famine, but this is not the end of his story. In the myth, Tammuz is not gone forever. He is resurrected each year, symbolizing the return of life after a period of dormancy. The cycle of his death and resurrection is intricately tied to the agricultural seasons, particularly the life cycle of crops. Just as Tammuz dies and is reborn, so too do the crops, wheat, barley, and other vegetation, die in the heat of summer and are reborn when the rains return. The myth reflects the ancient understanding of the natural world, where death is not an end, but a necessary part of a cycle of regeneration. Tammuz's death and resurrection also had strong religious and cultural significance. His ritualistic death and rebirth were commemorated in various religious festivals throughout the ancient Near East, particularly in Mesopotamian cultures. These festivals often involved lamentation rituals, where participants would mourn the death of Tammuz in symbolic enactments of his descent into the underworld. This was followed by celebrations of his resurrection, marking the return of life, fertility, and abundance to the earth. The rites were not only an agricultural necessity, but also a spiritual affirmation of the cyclical nature of existence. In addition to his role as a fertility and vegetation god, Tammuz was also associated with shepherds, highlighting his connection to pastoral life and the seasonal movement of herds. Shepherds would often pray to Tammuz for protection and abundance, believing that his favor would ensure the health of their flocks. As a god of fertility, Tammuz's influence extended beyond just crops and herds. He was seen as a protector of life and a source of prosperity. One of the most interesting aspects of Tammuz's myth is its similarity to other death and resurrection myths found throughout the ancient world. Like Osiris in Egyptian mythology, Adonis in Greek tradition, and even Christ in Christian theology, Tammuz's journey to the underworld and his return can be seen as a universal symbol of death and rebirth. These stories reflect humanity's deep-seated need to understand and cope with the inevitable cycles of life, particularly the inevitability of death and the hope for renewal. In modern times, Tammuz's myth may not be as widely known as some other mythological figures, but his story remains a powerful reminder of the interconnectedness between the natural world and the human experience. His death and resurrection reflect the rhythms of the seasons, the fragility of life, and the promise of renewal. The myth of Tammuz is a poignant expression of the ways in which ancient cultures sought to make sense of the world around them, using the stories of gods and their interactions with the earth to explain the inevitable cycles of nature and life. Through Tammuz, we learn about the sacred relationship between human existence and the earth's cycles. His death teaches us about the inevitable losses we all face, but his resurrection reminds us of the hope that new beginnings are possible, even after the harshest of winters. Just as the earth is reborn with the coming of spring, Tammuz's myth offers us the message that life, in all its forms, is cyclical, and in each death, there is the promise of new life. His story continues to resonate today, reminding us of the eternal rhythms of nature and the enduring cycle of life, death, and renewal.